G'day, welcome to the Financial Bloke podcast, the podcast for people seeking the wisdom needed to grow their family's wealth and live a happier, healthier and more prosperous life. My name's Ben Law and I am the Financial Bloke. G'day, welcome back to the Wealth and Wisdom podcast. Today we've got Asher Hammond of Agrijobs, a specialist agricultural recruiter. Today we're going to be addressing employees, or more specifically, how to attract and retain the right staff. This is an issue for all business owners right across Australia, especially in the ag space where jobs are more often than not remote, making it harder to source and retain the right people. Now, finding the right people can be an absolute challenging task, and it requires both patience and a bloody good understanding of what makes humans tick. Get it right, and it's got the potential to make a huge difference to the success of your business. In this episode, we'll explore Asher's insights into how to attract and retain bloody good employees. Now, if you've got employees or are thinking about taking on an employee for the first time or additional employees, this will be the episode for you. Without further delay, welcome Asher.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Now, Asher, there's one area of running a business that seems to stress most business owners out, and that's employees. Finding the right people and then managing them is way more difficult than managing most other aspects of your business. So for most producers, or for many producers, the easiest thing to do is just keep working harder. And this often leads to, in my experience, burnout for the owners and also loss of key staff due to too much pressure being put on them. So learning to attract and retain bloody good staff is a skill any business owner needs to learn. So we're going to dig into that today. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, Asher, can you just give everyone listening a brief summary of your background, especially in that recruitment area?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. Look, I come from a farming background and then I certainly had a passion from all aspects of agriculture from a young age. That led to a Bachelor of Agricultural Science and then employment with a global crop protection company, which was fortunate to send me to all different states across Australia and also allow me to have a look at many different agribusinesses from pasture-fed beef systems through to horticulture, irrigated cropping, dryland, rain-fed systems, and just about everything in between. So that was, I guess, a real highlight of my career. But along the way, I certainly found that I had a passion for people. So 17 years ago, I started up Agrijobs Australia and have been focused within the agribusiness sector Australia-wide for the last 17 years. And we focus on entry-level roles from farm hands through to supervisors, operations managers, right through to farm managers, and then even to CFO, GM, and strategic roles within agribusiness.
And I'm guessing, Asher, the market's probably the tightest it's ever been. Would that be a fair statement at the moment?
Oh, look, absolutely. We're certainly really feeling it in the agribusiness sector. Unemployment's at about 3.5% nationally, and that's the lowest it's been for the last 50 years. It's always been particularly difficult in agriculture. I think we've certainly felt the employment struggles more than a lot of other businesses that are, say, closer to regional or larger city areas to get and retain staff. But at the moment, it's probably, definitely the toughest it's been in the last 50 years. Certainly in the last 17 years since I've been recruiting, it's definitely the tightest.
And it's probably not going to change, I wouldn't expect, over the short term.
I think certainly short term, no. The next 12 months, I think we will see unemployment levels certainly slowly start to lift, but it's going to be a very slow. It's not going to just be instantly. There's going to be a bucket of people out there for people to access. So, yeah, I think you're right. Definitely 6 to 12 months, it's certainly going to be a very similar situation to what we're facing now.
So I think it'd be a fair statement, though, would it, Asher, that staff are thinking more about, where they're working, what they're doing, and are probably moving around a little bit more than they've ever done before, so that the possibility of actually attracting and retaining good quality staff is still there. It's not an impossibility. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, definitely. Look, there's certainly, we've seen across the sector, some companies certainly looking outside the box and looking at other industries where people traditionally haven't got a farming background, but they've got a set of skills and experience that are very well related to agribusiness. And then they want to make that move to a tree change or a sea change. So, yeah, we've definitely seen some good people come into the sector from other areas outside of agriculture. And I think that will certainly continue to happen.
Now, I want to cut right to the chase, Asher, and say, let's assume you're an operator, you're running a bloody good business and you're really, really driven and you know you need some staff or more staff, or maybe you're sick of dealing with less than ideal staff. Can you give us a bit of a sense on how the top operators or the people that are doing this well are starting to attract those best quality candidates?
Sure. So look, it's a competitive field, and in a very tight marketplace, you have to go out there and sell your business. So the value and opportunities that you can bring to an employee versus all the other operators out there. So if we delve down that in a little bit of detail, one is certainly a big thing that's come up since COVID is that work-life balance. So if you can delve that question in, and certainly on a lot of people's top priority list, if you can work around that, that's definitely one area that we're finding, people are really attracting people based on that factor. Secondly is, I guess, the package that people are offering. So money is one thing. If you're off by, 5% and you're the employer of choice, someone may go to you. But if you're off by 20%, then, it becomes a lot harder if you're, trying to get that person and you have that much of a salary difference between someone else, even though that other company may not be their preferred company. Money does talk a lot, especially with the increases in cost of living and the pressures financially that families are facing themselves on. But if we go then to looking at, say, a salary package and what you can offer as a business, it's not just the base salary. Then you have super. There's minimum contributions that you're obliged to pay, but you can also do some salary sacrificing and also increase the amount of super that the company pays. So that's one option. Another one in a package is vehicles. Vehicles are certainly an area which candidates place high value on. Some companies will offer a work vehicle, which is good, better than no vehicle, and then other companies can offer a fully maintained vehicle. And that is a very solid instrument that you can use in a package to certainly increase the value, because it means that that person basically has that expense taken off of their list, for their family. Another thing that people can do is bonuses. So they may be short-term or long-term, so they're not actually a guaranteed remuneration, but if the company does well or the candidate is performing well in certain areas, then you can certainly, add a bonus into, to increase their revenue and then also to give recognition for good work. Another area which is of value is training and also upskilling people. So if you have people that are the best in the business in your company, then that's certainly a string to your bow, and people will look for that and put quite a bit of value on, what they can deliver professionally in terms of their performance and their continued development in their career. So certainly some mentoring by that person or involvement with them will certainly, hold a lot of attraction for some candidates. And then outside of that, in terms of external training providers, 1 day, 1 week, or even at more senior levels, an MBA or something like that, they're all options in terms of what training that, you as a company can provide to candidates. And that certainly holds a lot of value. The other one is career path. Some companies are small and may not have the ability, but then other companies that are larger in size can certainly offer promotion to more senior roles, to other locations in the state or country where they have operations. And they're definitely things that candidates are looking for when they're out there in the job market.
So one of the things there, Asher, was the work-life balance. So being able to not just be all about work. Can you give us a sense of what you mean by that? Is that sort of like vacations? Like instead of having the normal old 4 weeks, you can give them 6 weeks. What does that look like in some of the times you've seen it?
Sure. So some employers are doing that. Certainly in the north, you have your 4 weeks annual leave, but then you have an additional 2 weeks wet season leave, for example. So definitely it's definitely about in a 12-month period extending that vacation time and time off of work. And I guess agriculture being seasonal, you certainly have key times of the year where you've got harvest or when you're doing exports and things, when you have pressure, you've got 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, whatever timeline it is, when you'll be working 7 days a week. But then there's other times in the year where things are a lot calmer, and then you do have the ability to reward that person for their service and the time that they put in that period of time with some time off.
So another one that I've seen occasionally, Asher, and do you see much of this is in a grazing operation, for example, is allowing them to run some cattle on the property. So they might have 10 head of cattle or 20 or whatever it might be. Are you seeing that coming through as well?
Sure, yes, that is an option, and it's certainly something that producers have the ability to do. And I think that it certainly keeps them within the business, but also allows them to have a little bit of a project on the side. And that's another thing too is, I guess in a day-to-day role, some people get a bit stagnated, and that's certainly a reason why they look to leave is for a little bit more challenging work. So look at the opportunity to give them a small project. It might be for, a week or two, or assist in some other CapEx projects, some planning, development of another site where they go away for a short period and they're actually assisting in another area or another job, which is out of the norm. But it just gives them a bit of diversity, breaks up the monotony of their day-to-day job, and also, ticks that feel good that they're actually doing something a little bit different to their normal job.
So, Asher, with the people that are doing this right, again, I want to keep coming back to that because that's where the lessons are. Can you give us a sense of timeframes it's taking to find and attract that right candidate? And let's look at, say, a farm manager type level, that well-experienced, someone that can step in and add significant value. There's not as much training. Is there some guidelines at the moment of rough timeframes you should expect?
Yeah, sure. It's certainly blown out. So, say 5 years ago, it probably would have taken, 6 to 8 weeks from the time that you commenced the recruitment drive. Now it's probably blown out to, at least double that or more. And depending on the location, sometimes 9 months is not uncommon. I've certainly, had some roles which are, in that 6 to 9 month time frame. So that just gives you an indication of how tight the market is. So yeah, it's certainly as tight as it's been for the last 50 years.
Are you finding people too are just constantly advertising in the sense that good quality people aren't always looking, and you might put an ad out for a month now and there might be just bad luck that none of the really good people are looking, and then a month later all of them are looking. So
That's right.
Is that something that you're seeing people doing, is as in having a consistent advertising program so that when the right people pop up, they can grab hold of them, so to speak?
Sure. Yep, absolutely. So you only need one person, as they say, but it is very tight. And then everyone's got their reasons for when they look for a job. So definitely timing is a key factor. So yeah, you may search for 3 months and that person's been tied up with their current role, with their family, and just not looking. And then they, for whatever reason, determine that they have a look at the job market and then respond to an ad. So yeah, definitely, I think you have to, be consistent, and then also, don't give up. Just keep looking, and certainly, yeah, you can be surprised at what does turn up, months and months later. So yeah, that's definitely happening.
So Asher, let's say you do advertise, and I'm guessing there's multiple ways you can use recruiters. I don't know. I see people put stuff on Facebook all the time, but how do you weed out the less than ideal candidates fairly quickly? And I think for me, I wrote down in my notes, mate, that the thing I see a lot of people fall into is what I call the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's an employee that's not what they appear or sell themselves on. How do you weed those out fairly quickly, would you suggest? Or have you got some tips?
Absolutely. So I'd probably go to the interview process and use that to really screen. And what you can do is you should have a job description or a key set of tasks and abilities that you're looking for. And then through the interview process, really hone down on those skills and abilities and fire specific questions at the candidate. So if you're a beef producer and you have certain systems that you're using out in the paddock, or reporting, agronomy, whatever it may be, and the person says that they have some skill in that area, so use specific questions on techniques or software, production methods, animal health, whatever it may be. So you've got certainly a good understanding of your business and the tools that you're using in there. So certainly by firing those questions at that candidate and getting, specific answers, and don't be afraid to lead on to further questions from the answers that they give you to, okay, give me a little bit more example of, how that went, what you did, and the results that you were able to derive from that. So quickly you'll find when you start asking these questions, you'll quickly rule out, I guess, if someone is, truly making up answers, or if they do have the skill and abilities that you're looking for. And the other thing you do is if you have 2 or 3 candidates, is that you can then rank those answers and then come up with a final score, which will then rank those candidates in a way that you can select the best candidate for the job.
So in your experience, I'm guessing a lot of, let's just call it wolf in sheep's clothing, people that aren't appear what they were. How long before that usually shows up in your experience, Asher? Is it something that people pick up fairly quickly when they employ them and go, uh-oh? Or is it something that normally takes a lot longer to flow through?
Well, I think once again, I'd come back and I'd say, have those questions, try and get as much information about the person's ability when you meet with them. And then with the reference checking process, go back and talk to people that they've worked with in the past, other industry people. And if you have any concerns or areas that you need validated, certainly fire those questions. And I think with that process there, you'll hopefully avoid employing them and, putting on someone who is substandard for the job.
Because it's a lot easier to say no up front than sack them later on, isn't it, if they're the wrong person?
Absolutely. And that's definitely the recruitment process, is definitely its ability to determine whether someone is suitable for your business and then make that call. Okay, the gut feel is, the guy's got 70% of what I need, but I need someone in here with 95%. So I'm not getting stressed. I can work on other parts of the business. I know that the business of that aspect is in good hands. And it's better to not employ that person and then go through until you do find a person who can give you that for your business versus, putting on someone who is really not delivering, what you want and is actually not an asset to your business, but a liability.
A terrorist, as I've often called them.
Maybe wouldn't go that far, but they can certainly cause you some pain. So you're always better off to spend more time recruiting and getting the right person versus putting on the wrong person, because it's definitely a lot more costly and sets your business back a lot more.
What about values, Asher? Because I know that's when I've ever employed someone, I went under the motto of I hired for character, trained for skill, rather than the other way around. So I heavily focused on the employees' personal characteristics, their values, their family values, and made sure they matched mine as close as I could possibly get them. And is that something you're seeing people are more and more focused on? Because obviously, if your values are, a can-do attitude and you employ someone that's very negative and a can't-do attitude, you're going to get some friction and some problems, aren't you? So are you finding values is something people are focusing on as well more these days?
Yeah, look, I think there's 24 hours in a day and, you certainly have your personal life outside of work. So really understanding what a person's, values are, what their interests are, what drives them to, get out of bed and, come to work and be positive, do a solid day's work is certainly, key. So certainly in the interview process, going through, finding out what makes them tick, what's important to them, their values, and how that aligns, with your values and your company and your business values certainly is a very good way to go.
Today's episode is brought to you by Agricoach. You've worked bloody hard over the years and you've built a solid operation. But as your children grow up and start their own journeys, you're beginning to think about the next 5, 10, and even 15 years and how to keep driving the business forward and ensure a smooth and successful succession plan. Preparing the business, preparing the next generation, and preparing for your eventual retirement all requires a solid plan and a proven process. Unsure about the right steps to take? Head on over to agricoach.com.au/webinar to learn more about our Succession Proof Your Family webinar. Agricoach, aligning families, growing wealth, and protecting legacies. And now, let's get back to the episode. Now, you must do a lot of exit interviews, I'm guessing, Asher, with people that get recruited and then, either leave a job or they come to you and say, hey, I'm interested in that job. Now, I'm talking about really good top-end grade A staff, so farm managers, employees, etc. In your eyes, what are some of the key reasons why good employees leave good employers?
Yeah, sure. I'd say money is a key one. Certainly it's very competitive. and you will be able to retain an employee if they're happy at work and they're enjoying their job and they're 5% out of whack with what the industry's paying. But if it gets to a point where you're 10, 15, 20, 30% out of whack with what others are paying, then you have a real risk of, if someone else says to them, and there's certainly good employees are noted not only within businesses, but outside of businesses and from other businesses. So it's very likely that they may get a tap on the shoulder and they may just say, oh, look, I'm pretty happy and don't want to leave. But if they find out there's a substantial difference in the package, they may just go and have a cup of coffee with that person. So certainly make sure that you are aware of what industry values are for your particular jobs in the business.
So the direct question is, how do you find that out, Asher? Because obviously there's, the minimum wages for these jobs, and the award and et cetera, but you want to be paying good staff, good salaries. How do you figure out if you're 5, 10, 20% out? Where would you say?
Yeah, you can certainly go to, some job boards, and a lot of the time they'll list what they're paying. So it's quite easy to quickly find out roughly what a farm hand or a supervisor or a farm manager is being paid just by going to job boards.
And that's the best place to start to be able to see.
I'd say, not bad. Yeah, very good place to start.
Yeah, because I talked to someone yesterday and they've got a key staff member and they're saying, we're concerned. How do we make sure we don't lose this person? And I said, well, the first thing, my point was money, making sure you're paying them appropriately or giving them a package that suits their needs. And their point was, well, how do we have that discussion with them without raising the issue and making it an issue when it may not even be an issue? So is it better to be on the front foot and have that conversation or just deal with it when it's raised by the employee?
I'd certainly, well, as I said, keep an eye on what the industry's paying so that you know that you're, at that mark. But then also, it's not always about money. Certainly recognition is another key one that comes through, is staff not being recognised. I think that comes down, as with the money, just to, good communication with them. Are they happy? How they're going in there? How do they feel they're performing? And just having a good two-way conversation will generally solve 95% of issues, or at least allow you to, as you say, be aware of an issue is that communication. So by, sitting down and just having a good solid chat about their work life, but also their personal life. Another key reason people leave is that, it may not be them. They may be the happiest person in the world, but their partner or wife may not be. And then you get a call out of the blue that they, want to relocate back to, where her family is for family reasons. So certainly, just by keeping that communication open. And also, I think in terms of the other one, which comes to mind, is career progression, is the ability to, be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And they're at the point where staff, if you've put that much training into them, they have an intimate knowledge of your business. They should be really quite a valuable employee. And when you lose someone who has that amount of years, it's a real pain to the business. And as we said before, maybe you don't have the opportunity to, promote them to a higher level, but you can certainly give them some different projects or additional training, give them some experience in some other, or make it available to have their input in other areas of the business to make them really feel like they are valued. And I think that goes a long way in a lot of cases to having people stay with you.
It's interesting, Asher, because I've done a fair bit of work in the succession space and dealing with the next generation coming through, which a lot of these problems we're talking about now flow over into why the next generation's not happy coming home on the farm or might happen to leave. And one of the things that, there's a discrepancy between what the older generation think and the younger generation think is, for the younger generation, up until about 28 to 32, so sort of under that age, generally they're not worried about ownership or money as much. They're more worried about responsibility and recognition. And that seems to be, in my experience, one of the key complaints from the younger generation coming through about mum and dad is they're saying, well, when do I get more responsibility and autonomy in the business to make decisions and be sort of promoted in that way, and recognition when I'm doing a good job? Generally what happens is I'm just told when I'm doing a shit job. and something's gone wrong, it's never like, hey, Ben, you did this great job the other day. We really appreciate what you're doing. It's like, oh yeah, it's a given. Ben knows he's doing a good job. And then when something goes wrong, it's like, oh, you dingbat, you left the gate open or whatever it might be. And so I'm guessing that's a similar sort of scenario. So Asher, in your eyes, is this something that should be, from a performance review point of view, should there be a combination of professional, as in we have structured reviews to make sure people are happy, and should you also have informal stuff in there?
For sure. So I think, you should definitely have a business plan, as you know, as a person with finance background, but also from an employee or even every person in the company should have like a plan or something which is written down, and it should have their skills, their duties, what their responsibility is in the overall picture. And, that should be linked to, production targets, whether it be, yield, numbers of stock, what the business is trying to achieve. So I think it's like a finance plan where you have a dollar value that they want to reach. For the employees, they should actually, you should have a plan with the manager, those numbers there, and then break that down through the team as to their part in the overall business, and then link that, in terms of production. If they're a farm manager, how many head are they responsible for? If they're doing, silage, fodder production, what are the yields there? So you put numbers on everything, and then that allows you at the performance review, it does give you that ability to say, hey, you've done great. We kicked the ball out of the park. With our stock numbers, our yields were great in our fodder production. So yeah, certainly it's a really good tool to have a performance plan with the employees, and it also gives them clear insight as to what they're responsible for. But then at that salary review or performance review, it gives you as an employer the ability to say, this is why you're getting a raise, and it gives them recognition, a pat on the back. Or if it's been a tough year, it validates why they aren't getting a raise or a bonus. If we have a drought or commodity prices are low, it really allows the business owner to sit down and say, we've had a tough year this year, and, that's why, we're not giving increases in salaries or bonuses, but still you may give them a pat on the back and say, we've had one of the driest years ever and you've done fantastic. And, next year, hopefully, things will be different. So it's a really good tool to allow recognition and also justification for financial outcomes in the business.
But that could be a great opportunity too, Asher, I'd expect, to be able to sit down and go, okay, well, what's important to you? Because once money is important up to a certain level, which I think you intimated there before, once you've got a certain amount of money,
yep,
money doesn't become the key driver. So if you have had a tough year, drought's the obvious one, to be able to go back and say, look, maybe there's only a small pay rise or no bonuses or whatever it might be, but what else could you offer them that would be highly valuable to them? What is it? And for a lot of people, it's like you said, it's that work-life balance, it's that bit of time away, take a bit of time off with the family or pay for a bit of a trip to the coast for a weekend or something like that. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. It can be something quite small, but figuring out what it is they love.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you've certainly got to hone in and find out what that person is passionate about and interested in terms of their hobbies, and then hone in on that with the rewards that you give them, whether it might be a fishing rod or a trip to the footy, a part for their dirt bike. I mean, it could be, let your creative juices run wild, but definitely by honing in on those, interests and passions, that's of high value to that worker. And certainly by, being in symphony with that in terms of some of those things that you do for them, it can have a real positive effect on your relationship with them and the way that both you and the business are perceived.
And it might not be for the actual person working for you. It could be for their family. As a simple example I've seen done before, Asher, is the daughter loves netball or the son loves football, and being able to get them tickets to the netball finals or to the grand final in the footy and send them along. So it's not overly an expensive activity, but when it's done for the kids, if that's important to them, that can really show that you care. And not only knowing that we have to still pay them appropriately, it's still just those extra little bits that make a difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100% agree. And I think, you'll see, people are having to do more and more of that, to remain competitive, as you say. It's becoming more of a requirement versus something that was above and beyond.
Now, Asher, If you're a remote employer, which a lot of graziers are, a lot of rural producers are, it's, as you've mentioned before, it's much tougher than if you're near a large regional centre or in the city. What are the right staff looking for in a remote job, in your experience?
Yeah, look, I think that, remote regions, they certainly have some of their challenges, but on the other hand, they certainly, have some real benefits. And I think if you talk about people who have spent time working in remote regions, most of them will say it's some of the, best work experiences that they've had in their life. And if you, delve down into that in a little detail, it's certainly that bush community, the camaraderie, the support, which a small team and a remote environment can provide. So definitely people, are looking for that. And we've certainly seen that there's been a change from some of the larger centres to more remote centres. So there are certain people that are actually looking for opportunities in rural and remote areas. So I guess in looking at those finer points, yeah, definitely it's the team, the backup and support of a small group and small community. And I think that, certainly in Australia, those communities, that's probably one of the gems that they have to offer people. And people, there are certain people out there that are looking for, for that opportunity.
And so what are the things? Is it like housing, Asher? That'd have to be a big issue, wouldn't it? Making sure if you're going to drag your family all the way to a regional centre, so to speak, that you'd want to have good housing,
Yep.
etc. Is there anything else other than housing, mate?
Oh, look, I think certainly that the accommodation is a key part of it. So you certainly want to make sure that you've got some accommodation in good condition. Yeah, look, I think there's, as I said, there's sometimes you can give a work vehicle. That's definitely a big positive. And then I think there's also other community events and footy teams if they have any sort of social sporting groups. It might be camp drafts, shows. But the employer who's, closely linked with those community events and can provide that to people, a good experience of those events for people that come and work for them, that's definitely, something that they can offer.
Okay. Now, Asher, when it comes to recruiting, I'm guessing you do up your job description, you do up your job advert, and there's multiple ways of going about that. I see a lot come up on Facebook. I'm guessing there's Seek and those sorts of things that people would look at. Then there's using recruiters, and I'm guessing obviously that's your bread and butter. So how can a recruiter actually add value to a family if they're trying to source the right team?
Sure. Look, I think probably the biggest thing that a recruiter can do is offer, its database. So, over a period of time, they get a large number of, farm hands, farm managers, and the people that you're looking for. So they quickly have the ability to reach out to the exact type of person that you're looking for, not only locally, but Australia-wide, that has the skills and experience that you're looking for. And then I guess the other ability a recruiter has is to, run through quite thoroughly those questions in terms of the job. And a good recruiter should sit down with you or over the phone and really try and get a good idea of your business and I guess its size, the different types of enterprises that you're into. And they should have a good background or working knowledge of those enterprises and then be able to, go forward and then sell your business, those positive attributes that we said, that you can offer, whether it be, key people with experience for training and mentoring, career path, other opportunities down the track, the location. So there should be quite a bit of background that the recruiter does, with you to try and understand all aspects of your business and then even really determine some of the specific criteria. You may have some people in your business that are really skilled but are lacking in other areas. So you may want a skill set of X, Y, and Z, but Z has to be exceptional because it's something that's not in your current team. So that's the ability that a recruiter has, is to not only look for, I guess, a general person for that role, but someone who can come in with a skill set that really adds value, not only to that position, but to the overall team and business in general.
Yeah, there's a couple of good points there, Asher. The first one is selling your business, because most rural producers that I know, they struggle with two things. Is they say, well, how the hell do we write this job ad? Number two is, how do we sell ourselves? Because they don't that's not their game. So if you had a recruiter that could sit down with you and go, okay, what are the positives here? How can we structure this? And how can we actually sell it to an ideal candidate? Because obviously, if you're looking for the best of the best employees, you're going to want to put your best foot forward. They're not going to come to you and fall all over you fawning, are they? Also, too, being able to then, create the job ads, taking that time off you and being able to then filter through the rubbish, shall we say, and the good and the bad. And I've written down here, I'm guessing also, Asher, there'd be a database of really good employees out there, people in the industry, but there'd also be a great database of the really poor people that you want to avoid, that have done the multiple jumping and, I know Mary or I know Bill and they've had 100 jobs in the last 2 years and they're problematic. You don't want them. So you then can avoid those serial problem people in the industry, which you may not be able to pick up in yourself. But there was one point there too I just thought of there was, and I've seen this before when I was working in London, I knew a couple of recruiters over there, and one of the things was finding a recruiter that's got the ethics as well, that's been in the industry for a long time and knows it, in the sense that you don't want someone that says, well, I'll recruit you a staff member, a really good one, and then 2 years later poach that one off you for someone else, which is, having that good ethic recruiter that's been in the industry for many years, that's reputation is so important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's the unwritten rule in recruiting is you never place a candidate there and then, make another placement off that, down the track. Otherwise, you're very short-lived in this business, especially in agriculture, which is it's a very small community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the ethics, isn't it, is finding the right people. But it's an unwritten rule, but in every industry, there's always people that don't necessarily operate like that, do they?
No, that's right.
Awesome. Well, that's given us some great tips. Now, from your point of view, Asher, is there, if someone is in that position where they're saying, righto, I need to go find that farm manager, that top-end employee, is there any other tips or where would you start, mate, if you're going to do it? Say, righto, we're taking this project on, we're going to go get someone. How would you say they should start off the process?
Oh, look, I think local is always best. Certainly, in my experience, if you can find, good people, who are based locally that don't actually have to, make a move across the country. So, yeah, certainly use your local networks and communities first and foremost. And you'll certainly, as you say, people are very time poor, so they, they may not have actually, done some in-depth sort of digging in their local area, and they'll be amazed at what they come up with. So I'd certainly say that's, certainly a first point of call. And if they are local, they can usually start fairly quickly and they don't require, relocation. And then I guess there's usually a time lag with that for people to actually, get out of their rental or sell their house and things like that. So yeah, local is very efficient for a whole range of factors. So that'd probably be my advice, is to dig pretty hard locally before you start reaching out and going a lot further afield. But that may be necessary, and then that's the next point of call.
Yep. So exhaust your local networks and then sit down and think, righto, well, what's the next step? And I'm guessing you'd have to spend a bit of time on that, creating that job description, all the tasks involved. So you've got a very clear understanding, and then also too a clear understanding of what the sort of person or people you're looking for in the business.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, if you can ascertain that, then I think you're 3/4 the way there, because as we said, you want to try and get someone with the skills and experience that's going to really be a positive add to your business, and you don't want to put one of those a wolves in sheep's clothing, on, because it's it's certainly it's a waste a lot of time going through the process, but then also to actually have that person in the business and then move them on. That's usually probably take you 3 to 6 months to to find that out. Maybe a lot quicker, but at any rate, any of those options are certainly not productive and costly.
And I think from my point of view is start recruiting sooner rather than later. If it's anywhere from 12 weeks up to 9 months in some situations, I think you want to be moving sooner rather than later. And then if the right person, unequivocally, if the right person turns up and it's not quite the right time in the business, you should, I'd guess, snavel them and get hold of them and get them in the business and find a way to bring them in, because good people are very hard to find.
Yep. That's right. I guess so. There's probably another point that I'd probably just want to make is you need to be very thorough with that recruitment process and getting that right person. And it does take some time, but try and make that happen as fast as you can, because if you do have a good person, possibility is they've got, 2 or 3 other people that are chasing them. So if you're too slow and they have 2 or 3 other offers, then they won't be around for long. So if you do identify that person and your gut feel is, yep, this is the right move, then try and make it as fast as you can.
And act professionally as well, because you want to put your best foot forward. So have everything in order, your job descriptions, your employment contracts, etc. So when that person turns up, you look like a professional organisation, not in chaos, because top quality people don't want to necessarily step into chaos. Now, even if you do have a bit of chaos going on in the business, that's okay. You just don't want to be showing that to the world just yet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, everyone has pressures in their business and, times when things seem to be spinning a bit out of control. But, hopefully it's only a short-lived scenario and you get on top of it fairly quickly. But, I hear what you're saying.
Awesome. Okay, Asher. Well, look, we're out of time for today. That's been absolutely amazing. I've written a whole lot of notes. I've got some good gold nuggets out of that. So from your point of view, mate, is there anything else you'd like to add before we head off today?
Look, I think that's... a pretty solid, summary of what we were trying to achieve today. I think, if you can do all those things, certainly you'll be in the best position, to get that candidate when they do appear. It is a tight market. It's not only our industry, it's mining, construction. Everyone's, crying out for people. So it is a tough market, but there's certainly, as we've discussed today, you can certainly focus on many different things to, give you the best chance at getting the best possible employee for your business.
Perfect. Now, Asher, where can people find more about you and Agrijobs online, mate?
Yeah, we have a website, www.agrijobs.com.au. So that'll, give you all of our contact information and services that we provide.
Perfect. And the last question, Asher, that I like to ask all my guests, hopefully you've prepared for this because I did tell Asher about it before. So what's your definition, mate, of true wealth?
Yeah, true wealth is probably related to happiness in a lot of respects. And I think by finding out, what your passion is in life in terms of, your job, your family and your hobbies, and then not being directed by other people's opinions, follow your heart and truly, go after, what makes you, your family and yourself in your personal and business life happy. And then, go after that with all guns blazing. And I think, but try and get a balancing act of, keeping all three as performing as best they can. So it's certainly a balance, and time is certainly your enemy. So certainly find out what you're passionate about and what things make you happy, and then go and chase that. And I think people who do that certainly are very successful.
Perfect. Love it, Asher. Excellent. Well, look, thanks very much for joining us today. We all got a lot out of it. And I reckon somewhere down the track we'll do a follow-up to this. We'll dig into some little bit more specifics. And if anyone wants to get in contact with Asher, agrijobs.com.au, I'll put those details in the show notes. And thanks very much for joining us, Asher.
Been a pleasure, Ben. Enjoyed every minute.
Now, before you go, I just wanted to say there's quite often after I finish recording a podcast, I usually have a conversation with the guest, and it's amazing how often little gold nuggets pop up that I've gone, I wish we'd put that in the actual episode, but it's been missed out. And there was a couple of those today. So I'm just going to give you those quickly before we finish up. Number one is, quite often when the market is so tight, people are looking at taking on maybe younger people with about 70% of the skills or 70% of the experience they need to do the job, and then training them up or giving them enough experience to get them up to that 100% over time. Now, that can be a really good strategy if you've got a really keen, young, well-valued person. Asher was saying one of the major problems, though, is that quite often when they come back to the farm, get in that position, they're thrown in the deep end and just left to sink or swim. They're not given enough support to build that 30% of skills that they need over time. So if you do recruit someone that's not quite got the skills for the position that you're after, make sure you invest the time to train them, check in with them, and make sure they don't feel too overwhelmed. Because with a little bit of adversity will help them grow, but too much, they might then all of a sudden say, this job's not for me, and they'll bounce out to someone else, and that's going to cost you a whole lot of time, effort, and energy. The second point was around money. And one of the things Asher said is quite often people get really fixated on that total dollar term. So as an example, let's say you did your budget and you said, I want to spend $95,000 employing someone. You find the absolute key candidate. That person wants $100,000. Again, I'm not saying those numbers are realistic. I'm just giving it as an example. And what happens is, Asher said that quite often you'll see the potential employee will say, no, I want 100. I'm stuck on 100. I'm out. And they'll go take a job elsewhere. And what you find is that they missed a really super good candidate, and they might spend another 6 weeks, 6 months, 12 months trying to find a replacement to that candidate. And they'll either run into the same problem again, or they'll find a person that's not quite as good and they'll take them on board. And people fail to calculate not only the cost of that extra $5,000, but what's the opportunity cost of all your time, effort, and energy trying to find the next person? So just really think about, if you've got that absolute right person, making sure you get the numbers right for you and also the employee. Again, we're in a tight market, so we can't be too rigid in the way we think around remuneration. Now, we've got over 50,000 downloads on the podcast, which has absolutely blown my mind. And it's all because people have been sharing the podcast, liking it on the socials, and telling their friends. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for doing that. That's what makes the podcast grow. That's what helps us get the wealth and wisdom out. The second thing is I quite often get emails from people saying, hey, Ben, this is a topic that would be really good. Could you do a topic on this? And some of them we can do easily, some we can't, but really appreciate all the feedback that comes through. And if you've got any questions, comments, or feedback, just drop me an email, ben@thefinancialbloke.com.au. Now that's all for this week. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.